Welcome to the Black Phoenix Financial Podcast. Lee Kemp here for another week of financial education, here with my teacher slash fellow learner, Ethan Cope. How are we doing this week, my friend?
Hi, everyone. How's it going, Lee? Good to see you.
Thanks. Yeah, no, doing good. Looking forward to another week. Certainly as the, I can see out my window there, the dark and miserable weather draws in. It's good to be doing something inspiring and getting the brain going. You're a lot brighter than I am there, but I presume it's just as miserable at this time of year.
It is. My wife really likes the nice, cheerful environment in the house generally. So we got this little haven, but outside it's yucky. It's raining and it's cold. So
let's get
happy
going
to be here with you guys.
Financial learning to get that going. Thanks again for everyone watching or listening. Give us some support over on social media. The show is at BP Financial Pod. Ethan is at T4A Phoenix. That is Phoenix spelled Phenux. We appreciate all the support and love over there. Whatever service you're listening on now or watching, just hit that subscribe button right in the corner here on YouTube, or just hit back out Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Hit that subscribe button for your
smash it.
Absolutely.
Boom, right there. Is that it? Boom. Smash that.
We appreciate that from everyone. So we will be this week rounding off our series on the personalities of the stocks. And we covered off the first two. We've talked about the big baby. We've talked about the teenage girl. And this week we're going to round it off with the golden personality that is the Navy SEAL. So start us off, I suppose, before we go in and see whether we can find anything that doesn't look like it. Do you want to tell us a bit about the hallmarks and maybe your experiences with the Navy SEAL?
Well, personalities, just like the personalities when we're meeting new friends, we're out in public, talking to people, we can get a gauge on the person pretty quickly, whether they're excited, whether they're sad. Those big, strong personalities are easier to pick out. But if a person's kind of, the Spanish word is así, it's kind of middle of the road, that can be harder to pick out. And stocks are the same way. We want to try to gauge whether the buyers are happy or sad, are they angry, upset. So that's how gauging stock personalities tells us where to put our money.
Actually, which has been, I say, a really interesting concept. As you know, that's what we've been looking at for the last few weeks on the charts. It's what I've been doing with my homework when we're away from this in between things. Just anytime I've got some downtime, grabbing that phone, putting up ChartGame, looking through, and again, try to understand both that stock and what's going on with the buyers and sellers. One of the things you were talking about the other week was where you see people either gaining or losing confidence in a stock. And the thing I started to notice is that thing where it hits a price, drops off, crawls up, hits that same bit and drops off again, and is almost threatening to break through. And you can almost see that bit where other people are wanting it to, but they're not sure. So they get out quickly before it potentially drops, which causes it to drop and see that going. And I've noticed that pattern happening a few times within them, which has been very interesting to see and read, which again, I wouldn't have appreciated how that works. And actually, before we go into the Navy SEAL, I tell you, to start to apply this in a bit of real life, I think I mentioned to you in one of the first shows that years ago, I put a little bit of money into Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And this was probably 4 or 5 years ago when it was going through one of its big spikes and starting to grow. And I got in near the end, so did all right, but didn't do brilliant. But what I've started to do now is look at the charts in the same way that we look at these charts and try and put my money in and take it out rather than just leave it there. So it's been on a growth recently. What I've done to test it is I've taken out about half the money I had, hope in my head thinking it's going to get to one of those dips, and try and read those patterns in the same way to try and grow that money by riding. Which again, I'm a few weeks in, so I don't really know what I'm doing. But like you said, it's good to have a bit of emotional investment. I already had the money there, and it's probably been flat for about 4 or 5 years. It goes up and goes down, but it always ends at the same place. So I'll keep you updated as we go through the weeks and see how that goes, and trying to apply some of your great logic to the real world.
I hope so. Yeah, I'm a student of the market as well, and just always learning. That is interesting to have some real money in there. So that'll be exciting also for our audience. One of the things I wanted to mention regarding personality right here while we're talking is I have a drop down on the SPY came down and told me what the S&P 500 ETF is doing, and it's going up. You know, I had the bias that the S&P 500 would be going down today because it
Yeah.
has been going down. But I have to change my mind when I get markers like that. I call them flags. They tell me succinctly that the S&P 500 is happy at this moment. So that's what we're going to learn and continue to learn: how to grade, how to figure out
And how
what
to
they're
adapt, I
doing.
suppose, as well is a big thing. Like you said, you
Oh
might see
yeah,
it going away, but don't get stubborn on your conclusion, because it might shoot
yep,
you in the foot otherwise. That's good. So
yeah.
what are the common, knowing what we know now about certain aspects, what are the common hallmarks you'd be looking for in terms of spotting, you know, that potential Navy SEAL, that stock that is going to increase, that is going to rise?
Well, one of the things that we talked about in the last episode is when you look at a chart and you see end-to-end candles,
Yeah.
the body of the candle is thicker, and then you have a wick that stands up on either end. When you have a body of a candle shoot up that's green, representing buyers, and then you have the very next candle start where the last candle left off, and then potentially grow in size with buyers, that shows that there's buyer exuberance in the market. And it's just temporary exuberance because it can always change depending on the stock. But those are little clues. It's like we talked about in the past. Ants carrying grains of sand in terms of little clues that you start to see whether the buyers are excited or are they sad in the moment.
Yeah.
And so you see a build, a build, a build, and then potentially you take a risk, you purchase with anticipation that it will continue to build. And those are the Navy SEALs that we've been talking about. Buyers, 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 no retracement.
And I suppose what you'd be looking for is over the previous day or days or term, whatever you're looking. Obviously, we're doing the day trading simulation at the moment, so we get the previous day
Right.
before. I'm guessing you want to see a far bigger swell of those green purchase bars down at the bottom than the red ones, and that's kind of part of your indication that it could be moving in that direction. Yeah.
Yes, we want to look, it takes a lot of patience, but we want to, as a beginner, we want to totally isolate the specific, the exact instant where it's safe to enter the market, immediately show a profit, exit the market.
And that's the ideal aim, yeah. And
Yes.
looking, and
Yep.
like we said before, it's that sniping thing. So go in when you know it's right to go in, rather than chucking the money in and hoping, and suddenly you've got no money left whatsoever.
Exactly, because most beginners are starting with a small account. Most beginners, like, we're teaching them to get started on a simulation. And this is a very, very hard skill to learn. So you want to start building that mental capital, that confidence right away. And the best way to grow confidence is to wait for the right moment.
So shall we give this a go? We'll get the
Yeah.
screen up. I'll describe for those listening. We'll be showing for those watching on YouTube. Again, just search for us, Black Phoenix Financial Podcast, and we'll have a look at a couple of charts and we'll see what we do or don't see as this goes.
Yeah. Let's get on it.
There we go. And I padded some time there as I again frantically search for that share screen button, the technical guru that I am. Right, so here we go. Chart game number 1 for the day. And I was whizzing through a few of these earlier, and I found one that I think starts with 3 of those end-to-end candles being the end of yesterday's day going in.
Yes. Yes, that
it started, again, strive for those listening, it started quite high during the previous day. It kind of got into a little bit of a baby territory, went down, and then it's kind of in fits and starts eked up during the day. And then right at the end of the last day, you've got 3 big end-to-end green candles and quite a lot of purchases happening as well. So is this, again, we don't know till we see the start of this day, but has this one got the potential, do you think, to move in that direction?
Yes, and what I've found is in the majority of stocks, the more time, the more volume that's traded around a certain price allows the move to be more confident. Because, like you said previously, you'll see buyers, they kind of test the price, they're not ready yet, they'll sell, it'll come down, and then slowly there'll be a slow build over 4 hours, 6 hours a day. And what happens is the buyers and sellers in that market, it's kind of like they all decide on a certain price, and they slowly dip their toe into that price. And as the price slowly rises, you even have new buyers enter in because the price is changing and it hits their radar. So that's kind of what we see here. It is showing potential.
Excellent. Well, let's get through that first golden half an hour to assess, and we have gapped down significantly for loads of purchases, but quite a drop from the close of 3.03 down to 2.85.
Very good. And that's what you see a lot of times in a stock that has shown strength, and at the market open is always called price discovery. So people look to take profits. Say a lot of stocks follow the overall market. So if the overall market went down right at the open, whatever stock that you're in is going to have a small correction.
So we've got so we gap down big there, but then we've got 1, 2, 3 further green end-to-end candles straight away. Huge number of purchases. I mean, it gives a number, over 500,000 buys almost in each 5-minute block. We've then hit a red candle, hit another green one. Still looking strong for you potentially, do you think, here?
Well, one thing I'd like to point out is that the personality of stocks is always affected by their price. And where you said it was kind of a big drop, and the knee-jerk reaction is to say certain things are a big drop. When you see a change of, okay, $3 to $2.80, that would be how much? About 10% drop. And you think, wow, that's a big drop that just happened. But in this price stocks, the volatility is high. They move around a lot more. So I do believe it could show strength still, but that's something to keep in mind is knowing the price range and the volatility of the type of stock you're trading.
No, I see that. That makes complete sense. And it's an easy track to fall into. I know myself. So I work in financial services. So we have loads of bar charts and all that sort of stuff for analysing numbers, performance, whatever else. And when you're putting them together, all you need to do is change the settings, and you can either make a really big up and down spike on your chart, or you can make a really small one. And people, exactly like I've done there, people react to a big dip without the context of what's behind it, just because of what they can see on the screen. So I suppose you're right. I only see the context of the numbers here. And like you said, 10%, if it's highly volatile, isn't such a big fluctuation once you've got that context. So we've gone during the day here. Oh, sorry, go on.
So what I'd say is we kind of go back a little bit to our old grading where it's a teenage girl or lower price stocks have more potential for any of the personalities. So this obviously wouldn't be a Navy SEAL, just because it's causing the buyers who are involved in the ticker to be upset. They're not sure what their investment's doing.
Yeah, and you can see that here, can't you? It's already, we've got gap down, up, way back down, even lower. It's kind of headed back up and it's bobbling through. So, from an open at 9:30, we're now at 12:30, and I think we can say this has definitely got that kind of teenage girl personality to it, isn't it? Of being a bit up and down.
Yeah, and what I like to look at is I like to see kind of like how long have buyers been involved. And so when you see there was a big gap down, and then there was an exuberance of purchase, and then the very next, all those buyers essentially got washed out. So there would be no buyers in the ticker in the time frame we're looking in, except at the very bottom of that next wick.
Yeah.
So there's buyers in there from that drop, but there's not really any exuberant buyers, like big green bars. It's just weak, kind of choppy, sideways action. As a beginner, we avoid this stuff.
Okay. Right. I'm going to drop us out of this one now because it's definitely following through that way. And exactly, I'm going to see that exactly like you said. You know, there were a huge number of buys I mentioned at the end of the previous day, and then it's much smaller volumes, like you said. So you think there's less people in the market, or there's certainly less people being active in the market on this one at the moment then?
Yes, and like if you go back the way we talked about it, we said, oh, or I talked about it, oh, it has some strength, or it looks like it has potential. That's the trick about being in the market, is you have to be willing to be faked out all the
Yeah.
time. Basically, you have to be willing to be wrong indefinitely and eat your shoe, and it not inflict terrible pain on you financially. So as a beginner, it's like the idea of getting used to being wrong over and over again, as quick as you can possibly be. So then when there's a definitive personality right in your face, you have had the patience to, okay, boom, now here's my chance.
That's it. Churn through those wrongs as quickly as you can to get to the right one. Yeah.
Yes.
I
Yep.
like that.
And
So I'm
it's
going to say
hard.
here, our next one we've pulled up is very low volume of activity most of the day yesterday. The bars almost are flat all the way through, reds and greens and some with nothing. A little bit of activity at the end of the day. I'm going to say this looks boring.
Yes, that's exactly what I'd say too, right off the bat.
Let's give it a little go to see. Whoa, a lot of sales to start with. We're going
The
red.
ways, yeah, that's what happens is the only ways these can get exciting is if you see a lot of volume come in.
Yeah.
We have seen more volume here, so if I was going to do anything, I might take a fade or a short position, small. But remembering that it had nothing going on
Yeah.
before, which means that volume coming in could translate into a very hard rip the other direction as well.
That makes sense. So yeah, like you're seeing here, there's a big load of sales. So arguably there's even less people in the game. So if you suddenly saw a big load of buys, would you be expecting a lot of them looking at a short turnaround that they'd all dump out again relatively quick? Once it gets a little bit of a build, that's where you'd see it go. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yes, exactly. Anything that has a small number of shares or normally trades very low volume can be erratic. They're called, generally, you see this pattern that came up where it's trading very low volume. Usually those are low float, which means there's a low circulation of
Right.
available shares.
I see that. And I try too hard not to question you. For those listening, those who like what we're doing, we will be talking a lot more about the supply and demand aspects next week. So I don't want to question you too far down that route before we get there. But again, it's a good bit of opening context on that particular thing. Here we go. Here we're slowly dribbling down during the day, but it's still not particularly. And again, we're talking about the decreases from 28.5 to 28.3. So it's really not doing a thing, is it?
Right. Yeah. So we got another chance to kind of fade a chart there. And like Lee said, we're gonna talk about supply and demand. We're gonna talk about volume. We're gonna talk about price a little bit. We're gonna talk about floats. We're gonna talk about how the active participants affect the mechanics of why price goes up, why price goes down.
Which I'm really looking forward to. The kind of, well, we said building that jigsaw, the layers information, just building it in brick by brick. This is why we do these charts. This is why we go through, because it gives some real time context to things rather than a lot of theory that you then got a million things in your head to try and apply to the real world. So
Right.
we'll give
Yeah,
ourselves a
keeping it
further
raw.
one before we delve in and we have a little talk about your current real world application yourself and where we're going. So this last
Okay.
one, I'm going to take an executive decision here and say, unless you want to correct me, of course, this one doesn't look great, and maybe we'll bid this one off and try for one that's got a bit more volatility in it to round off the day. What do you think?
Actually, you know what I was going to do is I was just going to see what it does when the market
Yeah,
opens, if that's
cool.
okay.
Absolutely,
Sit next.
absolutely. So again, it's a relatively downward trend, relatively flat, high of 15.2 down to 14.8. But then you've got those big 3 red bars towards the end of the day, then haven't you? For
Right.
descripting
So,
for people there.
so just once, if we pause for 1
Yeah,
second, what I'll give
absolutely.
you, the reason why I wanted to look at this chart a little bit different than the other chart is that even though there were sellers, I could tell that there was interest, that this is being actively traded. So you
Okay.
see representation on the chart, more sellers, but there's more activity than the one chart that we had just been through. So we'll see what the buyers do now.
Excellent. So starting, we've gapped up to start. Nearly up as far as we were yesterday.
Yep, that would be nothing. Kind of like what you predicted, actually. And now you have a little bit of buyer interest, but all those buyers that just were excited about the gap up are
Is
all
that them all back
underwater.
out again now?
Yeah, and there's no buyers in the ticker. So this definitely wouldn't be a Navy SEAL. It's just kind of irritating for anybody who would be involved in it.
Yeah, but like you said, it's interesting to see where they go, isn't it? And
It is. And
understand
it's
how
how
what you've read actually plays out in real life at the start of the next day.
exactly. And if you listen to any of the guys who are truly involved in hedge funds or prop firms, they'll all tell you is that full immersion is the best way to learn. And the idea is it's just like that you get emotionally involved in a chart, and you can get emotionally involved over and over and over again and allow it to mold your learning rather than like allowing it to whip you, beat you into submission is what happens a lot of times with real money.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I already feel, we said early on, it's about getting understanding the ebb and flow and feeling the well, as we coined it, the personalities within that world and what's going on. So that was interesting there for that one, absolutely. And then one last one here for the day. How are we feeling looking at this last up and down, very low, small bars again, right until the end of the day, and there seems to be a fair chunk of selling right towards the end of the day.
Yeah, that's what I see. It's kind of another one with no real personality. So it's the patience to just go through plays without really taking a position. And if you want to, with simulation, you take a position, knowing you could be wrong really quickly just to practice.
Test those
But
hypotheses, yeah.
generally as a beginner, I like to just wait, get familiar. And when you see something that feels like it really clicks, try it out, see how right you could be.
I see that. And for the sake of it, went through that first hour, gapped up with a lot of sales, and then it's settled back down to exactly where it was before. And I'm going to say that it'll probably go through the rest of the day looking like that, or it certainly hasn't got me invested enough that's where my eyes would be looking, I think. So
Yep.
our elusive search for a Navy SEAL continues, but I'm going to make that my mission between now and next week. I'm going to be on those charts, and I am going to make it my mission to find one of those Navy SEALs and come back and show it on the screen next week. That is my plan.
Okay, great. Yeah, and if you'd like this, maybe draw like a little arrow to where you put your entry thesis.
Yes,
that would be helpful.
Absolutely.
Try to like apply what we're learning a little bit.
I'm going to try and make that my mission. So that's really good. We've rounded off. So we talked previous episodes, if people haven't heard, go back and give it a listen. Big baby, teenage girl, Navy SEAL. We've not found it there, but we know what we're looking for. We know why we're looking for it, which is what's important. And I'm just going to live that lesson now and do that immersion really with the personality bit in my mind and try and get it as cemented as I can. That's the plan. So what is the real world looking for you like at the moment? How are your
real world
portfolio doing?
The real world is crazy. Today was actually a very frustrating day. I lost, I don't know, about $20, which wasn't too bad because I made a little bit of money when the market went down, but the tickers I was following went up. So that was really cool. So I had a negative thesis about the market because of coronavirus, the second wave, and everyone waiting for the whole stimulus bill. So it went down a lot. And I made a little bit of money on that. And then as the afternoon came around, the overall market started showing strength. So it's what we're learning is we're gaining personality. I have one share of a whole list of things in my portfolio. I could probably post to Twitter later on today, all the longs I'm following. And then for the actual money buys, if somebody we're not financial investment. This is just like general information. My number one buy for this week would probably be Rite Aid at the price it's at.
Yeah.
Because of the current situation, I believe that drugstore, the price it is going to go up. And then Cisco, once again, because of the overall market, things are at a good price. I don't know what to say. So Rite Aid and Cisco.
Excellent. And again, I'd advocate people listening, give Ethan a follow on Twitter at T4A Phoenix. That's T4APHENUX. Get on there. That's it. Mash that follow button, should I say, for Twitter. I'll get all my social media terminology right, because I know there's some great stuff you post, keeping tabs on where you're going with these day to day. You send me some great stuff in the week in between, and especially Rite Aid and Cisco. I've done, you've looked at things. There's been really positive markers there. So I encourage people, go over, have a follow, give it a look, get involved yourself, try and apply some of this knowledge to it and see what you can find out. And we will continue.
Education.
100%. Education. Hit that hammer. That's what I like to see. And we will keep filling in that puzzle for people. I mean, my understanding of this world has just exploded in the last 5-6 weeks. We hope it's doing that for people out there as well. And we want to just keep building this message. Again, we are at BP Financial Pod on Twitter as well. Anything you could do, give us a follow, share, retweet, encourage other people to listen to you like this. We appreciate all the support that everyone's got going on. And once again, just hit that subscribe button, leave some comments if you like it. If you don't like it, we would love to hear from you either way. And we will be back again next week to start filling in more of that education and those jigsaw pieces. Here's been Ethan Cope. I've been Lee Kemp. We thank you for listening. We have been the Black Phoenix Financial Podcast.